Alright, so in this video, I'm going to go over your entrance ticket with you, and then we're going to do some short notes, and then I'm going to give you some instructions for the rest of class. Alright, so first of all, for the entrance ticket, this first question was looking for the angle side angle, which remember is when you have a side that's touching two congruent angles. The answer for this one was triangles B and D, because we have that 34-degree angle on both triangles, the 63-degree angle on both triangles, and touching both of those angles is the 8 centimeter matching congruent side. So angle, side, angle, angle, side, angle. In question 2, we have two congruent sides on each triangle, and then we have a congruent angle in between. So remember, if you're moving your pencil over this congruent angle marking, you're hitting both of your congruent sides. That's how you know that the angle is in between your congruent sides. So this one is side, angle, side. Number 3, if we're finishing the triangle congruent statement, remember the triangle congruent statement has to match. So if we go N to L to M, that's going across the side with the 2 tick marks, and then across the side with the 1 tick mark. N, L, M. So we have to match. So we're going to go V, T, U. So V to T across the side with 2 tick marks, and then T to U across the side with 1 tick mark. So V, T, U, N, L, M. So this one, it was side, 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 because we're adding this reflexive or shared side. So that means that this side is congruent to itself, which belongs to both triangles. And then we have the other sides already marked for us. So 3 congruent sides on each triangle, so it's congruent by side, side, side. All right, so for this one was asking you what you need to add in order to prove the triangles are congruent, and that was a reflexive side, because this side is being shared by both triangles, so it's congruent to itself. So that would be congruent by the reflexive property. All right, and then once we have that it's congruent by the reflexive property, these are 2 right triangles. We know that because of the little box. That means we have a right angle. The hypotenuses are marked congruent. The hypotenuse is the side that's across from or not touching the right angle. So these are the hypotenuse. And then we marked the leg congruent by the reflexive property. So hypotenuse and leg. That is HL. To prove these triangles are congruent, we need to add vertical angles. Remember that vertical angles are across from each other in an X, and they're always congruent to each other. So these angles would be congruent by vertical angles. And then we would have an angle, side, angle. Angle, side, angle. So these 2 triangles would be congruent by angle, side, angle. All right, go ahead and close your Chromebooks. You are going to need a calculator, and the notes are going to be passed out to you. So pause the video, close your Chromebooks, grab a calculator, and unpause it when you're ready to take notes. All right, here we go, taking notes. These won't take us too long, so hang in there with me, probably just maybe 10 minutes. Okay, so we're talking about solving with congruent triangles, solving for missing sides and angles and X's. So when we have a congruency statement like this, it gives us lots of information because the corresponding or matching sides and angles match up. So, for example, let's draw these 2 triangles congruent to each other. So you can go ahead and just draw, 2 just generic triangles. And we're going to label them the same way. So I'm going to start at the top and do B, and then on the left do Y, and then W. And then repeat M, O, A. So it says write the angle pairs that are congruent to each other. We know which ones are congruent to each other because of the congruency statement. So for example, since the B and the M came first in each congruency statement, that means that B and M are congruent to each other. So angle B is congruent to angle M. Since the Y and the O came second in each congruent statement, that means the Y and the O are congruent to each other. So angle Y is congruent to angle O. And same thing for W and A. They both came last in our congruency statement, which means they're the matching pieces to each other, so angle W is congruent to angle A. And the sides work the same way. So for the sides, we're just looking at 2 letters at a time, because remember, we need 2 letters to name a side because it has a starting and a stopping point. So 1, 2, start, stop. So the first one would be BY, so B to Y matches the MO, so M to O. So those 2 sides are congruent. So segment BY is congruent to segment MO. Then we look at the next set of 2 letters. So YW and OA. So Y to W and O to A, those are matching because they're the last 2 letters in each one, so they are congruent sides. So YW is congruent to OA. And then last but not least, we can do the same thing for the first and the last letter. So BW and MA. So BW is congruent to MA. And knowing these things is going to help us solve. So in this picture we have triangle ABC is congruent to triangle TOP, and BC is 3x plus 3. So let's go ahead and label our picture. So BC is 3x plus 3. And we're going to solve for x. So we have to figure out which side on the second triangle is corresponding or matches to BC. And we can know that from our congruency statement because BC, that's the last 2 letters. So OP, that's the last 2 letters. That means that BC and OP are congruent. So if they're congruent, they're equal. So we're going to set them equal to each other. So 3x plus 3 equals 36. And now we're going to solve for x. Subtract 3 from both sides. That leaves us with 3x equals 33. And then divide by 3 on both sides. That leaves us with x is equal to 11. All right, next one. So solving for x. So we have some congruency marks in these pictures. Remember that these tick marks mean those 2 sides are congruent. The double angle matches the double angle, so A and Q are congruent, and the single angle matches the single angle, so B and R are congruent. So since we're solving for x, well, x belongs to the single angle, so that means it's congruent to or matches the other single angle. So 2x is equal to 60 because those 2 angles are congruent to each other. We knew that because of the little congruency arc marks. So divide by 2 on each side, and x is 30. And then last but not least, we have triangle COW and triangle PIG. Let's draw a picture. So give yourself 2 generic triangles, label it COW, and then in the same order, label the other one PIG. So if I don't have a picture, I always start by drawing one because then we can label things and it makes it less wordy when we're reading. So CO is 25. CW is 18. IG is 23. and PG is 7x minus 17. So it says solve for x and the length of PG. So we're going to solve for x first. So x belongs to PG, and which side on the first triangle is congruent to PG? Well, we can either use our congruency statement, which says P is the first letter, G is the last letter, matches C is the first letter, W is the last letter, so CW, or you can see it in how we drew our picture. So 18 is equal to 7x minus 17 because these two sides are congruent to each other. So 7x minus 17 equals 18. Add 17 to both sides. So 7x equals 35. And then divide by 7 on both sides. So x equals 5. All right, and then second we want to solve for PG. So since PG and CW are congruent, they should have the same measure. So if one of them is 18, the other one is 18. So PG is 18. But we also could have done that by plugging in x into the expression. And we should get the same thing, and that actually would be a good way to check our work. So if we plug in 5 for x, we should get 18, because PG is 18 because CW is 18. So 7 times 5 minus 17. That's 35 minus 17, which is 18. So we did good math. Good way to check your work. It was supposed to come out to 18 because CW and PG should be the same thing because they're congruent. All right, so next you guys are going to need your Chromebooks. Your substitute has the code for quizzes that I want you guys to do. Once you finish the quizzes, then the substitute will pass you out the paper practice, which is just 6 questions. Let's see if I can find it. I'll show it to you. Aha, here we go. Here's the practice, just 6 questions. So once you finish the practice, you're going to take it back to the substitute. She's going to check it with the key. If you needed to fix anything, you'll fix it, and then you're going to turn it in. So I want your name on it, I want your class period on it, and I want it turned in so I can see that you did all of your lovely work. So again, you're going to get your Chromebook out, you're going to do the quizzes. After that, you'll put your Chromebook away, look at the practice, do these questions, check it with the sub, and turn it in. And then that's all I have for you today. I hope you have a good rest of your class period and a great end of your week.